Hi everyone! Hello and welcome back to the channel. Before we dive into today's incredibly emotional and heart-wrenching story, please take a moment to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Your support helps us bring more of these life-changing stories to you. Now, let's begin. The silence of the night weighed heavily on Adeline Thorne as she sat in her modest apartment. In her weathered hands, she held a faded photograph of her son, Owen, capturing a moment of pure childhood innocence. Tears welled in her eyes, not just from grief, but from the crushing weight of a truth she had just witnessed with her own eyes. It all began on an ordinary Tuesday. Adeline was at the local grocery store, carefully counting her meager pension coins to buy a simple vanilla cake for a family visit. As she reached the counter, the cashier, an elderly man named Eli with kind but piercing eyes, suddenly reached out and gripped her arm. His voice was a low whisper, trembling with an intensity that made her heart race. "Mrs. Thorne," he murmured, looking around to ensure no one was listening, "your son is a man of pure gold, but you must know, people are feeding off his kindness like vultures. I've seen things here that don't match the stories they tell you." Those words struck Adeline like a physical blow. For 3 years, since Owen had married Sienna, Adeline had watched her son exhaust himself. Sienna's family, the Williams, always seemed to be on the brink of a new catastrophe. One day it was an unpaid rent notice, the next it was Leonard, Sienna's father, needing urgent medication he supposedly couldn't afford. Owen, driven by a deep sense of duty, worked double shifts, skipped meals, and sacrificed his own health to keep his in-laws afloat. Even Adeline had frequently dipped into her small emergency savings to help, moved by Sienna's tearful phone calls. Driven by a nagging suspicion planted by Eli, Adeline did something she never thought she would. She waited. She didn't leave the store. Instead, she hid behind the large industrial dumpsters at the edge of the parking lot, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. Then she saw him. Leonard Williams pulled up in a gleaming, brand-new SUV, a luxury vehicle that cost more than Adeline's entire apartment. He wasn't wearing the tattered, faded clothes he always wore when visiting Owen. Instead, he was dressed in a crisp designer shirt and polished leather shoes. He stepped out with a relaxed, confident stride, carrying heavy bags embossed with the gold logos of high-end boutiques. There was no sign of the ailing man who couldn't afford his heart pills. He was laughing into a smartphone, looking like a man without a single financial care in the world. Adeline felt a cold shiver run down her spine. "Are these the same people who cried to me last week because they didn't have money for bread?" she whispered to herself. The realization began to dawn on her. Her son's life was being drained to fund a lifestyle of hidden luxury. She realized then that she wasn't just looking at a family in need, she was looking at a wall of carefully constructed deception. Adeline stood in the parking lot, her legs trembling. She quickly wiped her eyes as she saw Owen's car pull up. He looked exhausted. The dark circles under his eyes were a testament to the double shifts he was working at the warehouse. "Sorry I'm late, Mom," Owen said, forcing a wary smile. "Sienna called. Her dad had another episode, and I had to stop by the pharmacy to pay for his new prescription. It's expensive, but what can we do? They're family." Adeline felt a lump in her throat. She wanted to scream, to tell him about the brand new SUV and the designer bags she had just seen Leonard carrying. But she knew Owen. He was a man of logic and immense loyalty. Without cold, hard proof, he would think his mother was simply being difficult. So she climbed into the car and kept her secret. For now. When they arrived at Sienna's family home, the sight that Adeline met was even more jarring. From the outside, the house looked modest, but inside, the transformation was undeniable. There was a new plush leather sofa in the living room and a massive high-definition television that hadn't been there a month ago. Sienna greeted them with a radiant smile, wearing a dress that was clearly not from a clearance rack. "Oh, Adeline, you look tired. Is everything okay?" she asked, her voice dripping with a sweetness that now felt like poison to Adeline. "I'm fine, Sienna," Adeline replied, her eyes scanning the room. "That's a beautiful dress. Another gift from a friend?" "Actually, yes. A friend from church was moving and didn't want it anymore. Can you believe the luck?" During lunch, the air was thick with lies. Leonard sat at the head of the table, pretending to cough and look weak whenever Owen looked his way. He spoke at length about his dwindling savings and how much he appreciated Owen's monthly contributions. Meanwhile, Adeline noticed Leonard's wrist. Underneath the sleeve of his old sweater, a gold watch caught the light, a watch that cost more than Owen's car. Adeline excused herself to go to the bathroom, but instead, she slipped into the hallway. She saw Sienna's purse sitting on a console table, slightly hanging open. Inside was a small, leather-bound notebook. Her heart raced as she flipped it open. It wasn't a diary, it was a ledger. Her eyes widened as she read the entries. They were categorized by dates and excuses. October 12th, rent emergency, $800 from Owen. November 5th, Leonard's heart medication, $300 from Owen. Next target, dental surgery, goal $1,500. Beneath the numbers were notes in Sienna's handwriting. "Owen is feeling guilty about his promotion. Push for more this month. Remind him how much my parents sacrificed for our wedding." Adeline felt a wave of nausea. This wasn't just a family in a tough spot. This was a professional operation. They weren't just taking Owen's money, they were studying his psychology, using his best traits, his kindness and his guilt, against him. She heard footsteps approaching. She quickly tucked the notebook back into the purse and stepped into the bathroom just as Sienna walked past. Standing before the mirror, Adeline gripped the sink until her knuckles turned white. "No more," she whispered to her reflection. "This ends tonight." The drive home was suffocatingly quiet. Owen was focused on the road, his shoulders slumped from a fatigue that went deeper than bone. Adeline looked at her son, her brave, selfless son, and knew that the surgery she was about to perform on his heart would be painful but necessary to save his life. "Owen," she said softly as they pulled into her driveway, "I need you to come upstairs. I have something to show you." Owen sighed, rubbing his temples. "Mom, can it wait? I have an early shift tomorrow to cover the deposit for Leonard's surgery." "No, Owen, it cannot wait another second." Once inside the apartment, Adeline took a deep breath. She pulled out her phone and showed him the photos she had secretly snapped of the brand new SUV and Leonard's designer shopping bags. Then she described the ledger she had found in Sienna's purse, the cold, calculated list of targets and excuses. Owen's face went pale. "Mom, you must be mistaken. Sienna, she wouldn't. They're struggling. I saw the eviction notice last month." "Was it an original, Owen, or a photocopy with the dates changed?" Adeline challenged him gently. "I saw Leonard today. He wasn't limping, he wasn't coughing. He was wearing a gold watch that costs more than your annual salary." The silence that followed was deafening. Owen sat on the edge of the sofa, his head in his hands. For an hour, he went through the stages of grief, denial, anger, and finally a soul-crushing realization. Every emergency he had bled for, every meal he had skipped to send them money, flashed before his eyes as a cruel, orchestrated lie. "I have to hear it from her," Owen whispered. He drove back to his house, Adeline sitting silently beside him. When they walked in, Sienna was on the phone, laughing. She quickly hung up, her face shifting back into that practiced mask of concern. "Owen, you're back. Is Adeline okay? Did she have another spell?" Owen didn't say a word. He walked straight to her purse, pulled out the leather-bound ledger, and threw it on the coffee table. Sienna's eyes darted from the book to Owen. The sweetness in her expression evaporated, replaced by a cold, sharp hardness Adeline had never seen. "You went through my things?" Sienna hissed, her voice dropping the high-pitched innocence. "How dare you?" "How dare I?" Owen's voice trembled with a mixture of heartbreak and fury. "I worked 18-hour days for this. I skipped my own father's memorial service because you said Leonard needed an operation. Was any of it real, Sienna? Even one word?" Sienna realized the game was over. She didn't cry. She didn't apologize. Instead, she laughed, a harsh, mocking sound. "You were so easy, Owen. You're a provider, right? That's what you kept saying. We just let you provide. My family deserves a good life, and you were the ticket to it." The betrayal was complete. The divorce was swift and brutal. Freed from the financial drain of the Williams family, Owen's life transformed. The dark circles under his eyes vanished. He began to eat well, to sleep, and to invest in his own future. He even bought Adeline a small cottage near a park so she would never have to count coins for a cake again. 2 years later, Adeline sat on her new porch, watching Owen play with his newborn daughter. Beside him was his new wife, a woman who worked as hard as he did and cherished his heart rather than his wallet. Adeline took a sip of her tea, the warmth spreading through her chest. She had learned a difficult lesson. Love is blind, but a mother's eyes are always open. Sometimes the greatest act of love isn't giving more, it's having the courage to stop the lies and tear down the wall of deception. Thank you for staying with us until the very end. If this story moved you, please give it a like and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe for more daily stories. Until next time, stay strong and stay wise.